Hello, this is Brian Jerwitz, and I am going to walk through the Shopventory app for Clover today. I'm with Arrow Payments, and we focus primarily on helping universities, healthcare systems, and governments set up their payment systems and PCI compliance. And many of our clients are interested in Clover as a point-to-point encryption solution. But through Clover, most of the companies we talk to are looking for even more inventory control, inventory functionality, and features. And so we recommend the Shopventory app added to Clover, and that's what we're going to walk through today. So this is the Shopventory app that we are signed in now. On the left-hand side is the navigation bar. So there is the home screen, which is where we are right now, or the dashboard. There is an inventory section. The inventory can be tied back to different vendors that might be you might be working with within your system. And there's also an invoicing tool, a number of different ways that you can set up payments. But in this case, we're walking through Shopventory setup connected to the Clover app. And so everything that we set up within here will also be linked over to Clover. Most importantly is you need to have vendors set up if you want to tie your inventory to vendors. You also need vendors set up if you want to tie purchase orders back to those vendors as well. And so today we're going to talk through setting up items that are for your inventory, tying those items back to vendors, and then setting up purchase orders for those vendors so that you can have everything connected back to the same place and then running reports across all those different pieces of the settings. So for this example, we're going to be working with a Purdue University property accounting sheet from their surplus department, where there are a number of different inventory items that are going to be sold for surplus. This sheet here has a form number, a cost center, and data was created, business area, the requester's name, some other details on here, as well as obviously the inventory items down at the bottom. In order to create this within Shopventory, the first thing we're going to want to do is create a vendor or use one of the existing vendors. So you can create a vendor here by giving the vendor a name, determining which location or locations that vendor serves if you have multiple locations for your setup within Shopventory. You can give it tags, a website, contact information, any other details you want to add specifically for that vendor. And then once the vendor is added, you can edit the products associated with that vendor, obviously save it, or just close this. I've already started by creating a vendor, and in this case, I called the vendor 4030, which aligns with the business area from the Purdue property accounting sheet here. So within this vendor name, I just put 4030. Obviously, this could be a department name or something else. Selected that they serve the only location that I currently have set up for myself in Shopventory. I decided to add a tag in here tied to the cost center. So this is the cost center from the Purdue sheet here. I didn't add a website. I did add the contact name so that was included, which came again from this requester name. And I left the rest of this information blank, but it could be, filled in. From this point, I'm not going to go into edit products. Well, I'll show it to you quick. I've already started adding products in here and selected them for this vendor, but I think we'll go into the products themselves so that you can see what the products look like as you start to add them. So in my inventory items or my products, I have a number of different items that I've already set up. And I can create a new product by clicking this link here, giving a product name, and then creating variants. Variants would be specific details or options of products that fall within that variant or within that product name. So let's say this was furniture. I could then have chairs and couches or whatever. I can also create categories. So I could have a category called furniture, and then I could, create seats as a product name, or chairs, and then there could be different colors of chairs down here. And so that's really depends on how detailed you want to get between categories, product names, and then the variants themselves. Within the variants, you have the ability to create SKUs and barcodes, prices, the cost of those, and then the ability to set up reorder quantities or minimum amounts that you want to have in inventory. So depending on how you track things, it will actually notify you when inventory drops below certain levels for that specific amount. And then as you create items, you can assign them to vendors over here on the right. So I'm going to go back and show you some products that I've already created. So if I click on this one here, food cases and stations, you'll see that that's a product. There's multiple food cases and station line items here, because then the variants themselves, at least in how I created this, was specific types of food cases and stations. So cold food bar, food display case, hot food table, hot buffet station, all belong to food cases and stations, all within the kitchen equipment category. This will make more sense when I click on one, where you'll see here the product name, food cases and stations, all within the kitchen equipment category. And then down below, I have these variants. So food display case, and these are all coming off of this Purdue inventory details. So there's an inventory number, a description, and a asset number, all tied back to the inventory that I'm entering. So for the food display case, here's the SKU and the barcode, which I'm using this inventory number and the asset number to create the SKUs and the barcodes. So when I look at the food display case, there is this inventory number 1056856. When I go back to Shopventory, you'll see food display case 1056856 is the SKU. The barcode I gave it was 3069892, which comes directly from this sheet, 3069892 for the food display case. That way I can track all of these details, give them a price and a cost. In this scenario, I'm assuming that the cost or the commission back to the department is going to be 50% of whatever we price the goods at for sale. So if we sell it at $2, the cost or amount going back to the department would be $1. Over here on the right are the vendors. And so if I click edit, it will pull up all the different food cases and stations that I've created within this product type, and I can then assign them to vendors. In this case, I'm using the 4030 vendor, which matches the business area that this document came from. There is also an option within Shopventory to import a spreadsheet. So if it would be easier for you to have a spreadsheet that has all of these details without having to set up all the information individually, you could do that as well, and then just import all of these items all at the same time instead of going in, entering these details, updating all the products, and then saving it. But this is also synchronizing with my Clover setup as well, so that when I go to my Clover POS system, I will see these same items for sale there and can operate that way in terms of keeping track. So that's how you create items for your inventory. Those items can then have detailed SKUs and barcodes. They can be assigned to specific product types or categories. They can have a variant name and prices, and then be assigned to vendors. From there, if you want to work with purchase orders, you can go to the purchase orders tab here on the left, or purchase orders icon, and create a PO. This would allow me to select a vendor. So if I click this, it shows the different vendors that I have set up. And if I have any other details that I want to add in here, I can. I can then start adding products to the purchase order and then save it as a draft. If you save a purchase order as a draft, you can always go back and make changes and edits to it. Once you save it or finalize it, then it is locked and you cannot make any more changes to it. The only thing you can do is fulfill that purchase order or cancel it altogether. So again, purchase orders are here on the left. If I click on purchase orders, you'll see this one here that I have in a draft status. So if I click on it, you'll see it's for vendor 4030. And down here, I have the different products that I've added to this purchase order so far. I can also click to add products, and it will pull up all of the different available items and inventory that I have created within the system for this vendor. You'll notice these blue pluses here on the right. This would allow me to add these products to this purchase order, and once I add it, the plus turns gray and the product ends up over here on this side, which are the variants for this purchase order. I can click them individually, or I can click this button at the top to add all variants to the purchase order so that everything that is available from this vendor is added to this purchase order. From there, I click done. I can then see all the different items that I'm ordering, and I can start adding in quantities. In this case, there's going to be a quantity of 1 for every one of these specific items. Again, this could be imported into the system instead of typed one by one. Once I have finished adding, or when I'm ready to save this, I can just click Save Draft, and that will save all of my work. And this purchase order then still remains in here in a draft status, so I go back to it, click on it again. Maybe I need to add more items to my system before I can add them to the purchase order, but I'm basically going in and saving the draft until I feel comfortable that the purchase order is finalized. If you do want to import purchase orders, there is this actions button here with a bulk upload option. And so this is where you would go if you wanted to import purchase orders into the system instead of manually creating them one at a time. So once I have the purchase order complete and all of my items or inventory products that I want to add to the purchase order, if I don't want to add anything else and I think it's finalized, instead of clicking Save Draft, I will click Create. So here's a reminder that says once a purchase order is created, it can no longer be edited. The only available action will be to receive the inventory. There is also an option to cancel the purchase order. Are you sure you want to create this purchase order? Yes, create my purchase order. And now that purchase order has been entered into the system. So now that I have my purchase order created, I can go back into it and receive inventory. So again, these are all the different items that we had listed. You can now see that I can't change this anymore because this purchase order has been finalized and created. And so if I click Receive Inventory, it's going to take me to this screen. Here's the total number that is ordered. And I can then put in the amounts that I am receiving. Looks like I can also click this button down here. So if I delete a few of these, say receive all quantities, it's going to fill it in automatically instead of me having to type in each row. That receive all quantities option is also up here. So once I have that finalized, I click done. And save and adjust quantities. And once this is saved, it's going to finalize and adjust my inventory. So now that purchase order has been saved. The system also gives you the option to print SKU and barcode labels for the inventory that we just received. I can do that if I want to print labels, but for this scenario, I'm just going to click continue without printing. There's a number of different options for printing labels within the system. You can now see that purchase order is no longer outstanding, and so it doesn't show up on this list unless I change to all orders, where we have this complete order now for the inventory we just received. So now I can go from my purchase orders back into my inventory, and you can now see that for my quantities in stock, I now have all of those items that I just received from the purchase order that I finalized and received the inventory for. So once we have finished setting up our purchase orders and our items and our vendors, and transactions can then happen through Clover, you then have the ability to go over and take a look at reports that Shopventory provides so that you can see details on sales. So the sales report provides, net sales for whatever payment date range you put in. This is just for today. So it shows net sales, gross profit, number of transactions, number of products that are sold, any other details that are being fed into your inventory or your transactions. And then down at the bottom, it starts to show categories that have been sold. Today, only kitchen equipment has been sold, sales by category, and then a breakdown of specific products, variance, quantities, totals, revenue, cost of goods sold, and total profit. There's also a category sales report, which jumps then into specific categories with similar information down at the bottom. More importantly, there is a vendor sales report so that you can see sales broken down by vendors. In this scenario, we have had sales, but it's only been from one vendor. And the breakdown of that vendor sales are down here. So it shows the vendor, the products, again, the variance, quantities, revenue, cost of goods sold, and total products. These reports can be viewed obviously online. You can print PDFs, but you can also export them into a CSV file and then saved to your computer and then opened up. So that if you want to use these reports for other details, then you can. And so here is a spreadsheet now showing that same report. So the period or locations, and then the vendors. So you see each vendor broken down on the row, the categories, kitchen equipment, the different products, in this case, food cases and stations, and a refrigerator, freezer, cooler product, the specifics, so cold food bar, refrigerated display case, the warming counter, freezer baker, the SKUs, the barcodes, the quantities, total revenue, cost of goods sold, and total profit, as well as your profit margins. Again, I set all of these to have a 50% cost of goods sold going back to the departments that provided these. If we had multiple vendors or situations where multiple vendors and sales were happening across multiple categories and products, those would all then continue down this list so that you'd have everything on one sheet that can be utilized or imported into other programs, etc. Again, I'm Brian Jurwitz with Arrow Payments, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have questions around Clover or Shopventory or any other payment systems. We do not use any of our own technology, so we're happy to help our clients figure out which solutions are best for them, help set those systems up, support PCI compliance, and any other needs that you may have. Thank you for taking the time to listen.